The Austrian School of Economics has a long tradition that dates back to the 19th century. And the label, like a lot of times in intellectual affairs, was given by their critics rather than by the advocates of the position. They just thought they were doing economics. There is online the Concise Encyclopedia of Economics, and I have an entry in there on the Austrian School of Economics which tends to de-emphasize personalities and de-emphasize this history, and instead focuses on 10 propositions that any student of economics would follow or think about that define the Austrian tradition. Well, the Austrian school is unique in its emphasis on knowledge and on the dynamic aspects of the market process. The market as a learning mechanism that focuses on knowledge, discovery, its utilization, and its transmissions. The number one thing is that Austrian economics should be viewed as just economics. Milton Friedman had this famous line where he said, there's no Chicago economics, there's no Austrian economics, there's just good economics and bad economics. Well, a lot of it has to do with sort of subtle method and methodological questions within economics. So the Austrians, if I go back to the methodological individualism point, the Austrians start the unit of analysis, the individual, the constraints that they face, and the choices that they make in the face of those constraints. Ludwig was very influential. Philip Wicksteed's work is also very important here. He was a British economist. Frank Knight's work, Risk, Uncertainty, and Profit, was very valuable. Hayek is, of course, the idea of invisible hand and spontaneous order is very influenced by Smith and Hume. I think that you could say that Smith and Hume were the big influences from the classics on Hayek. Whereas Mises is more the utilitarians, James Mill, not necessarily John Stuart Mill, but James Mill and Bentham, and then also Ricardo, very influenced on Mises. And so they drew from a large part of a scientific tradition. We have been so successful at communicating to our peers the insights of the Austrian School of Economics that the Austrian school as such no longer serves a purpose because mainline economics and mainstream economics would have merged, and then that you would just say, oh, you do economics and political economy. And I think, again, we're in a situation where we're stressing that there may be macroeconomic phenomena, but there's only microeconomic explanations and solutions. And so we have to go back to the incentives that individuals face, the flow of information that they work with, and whether or not the feedback mechanism guides them in positive ways or in bad ways. And keep in mind the context of the times, which is the late 1970s. You have a stagflation going on. Reagan's not in office yet. This is the end of the Carter administration, where when Reagan was running, he referred to the misery index, where we had double-digit unemployment, double-digit inflation. And so kids in college were concerned, just like the kids today, about what their economic future is. Austrian school, more than any other school, highlights that connection. And as a result, I think young people who are staring this down and have the sense to understand that these are going to be very turbulent times, the Austrian school allows you to frame that conversation better than any of the alternatives.